menacingly. He locates the office and does not bother with the secretary sitting outside the cabin. He marches past her and bolts the door behind him. Kanti Bhai is at his desk and speaking on the phone. First, he does not know what to make of this intrusion. He asks the person on the other end to hold on. Then the threat dawns on him and he puts the phone down. Who are you? From the man's garb and his angry eyes, he has a fairly good idea that this has something to do with Seema and Mohan. The visitor is in no mood for formalities. Haramzada! How dare you! Javed shouts. He swings the cane over his head as he approaches the desk. Kanti Bhai panics. Security! He shouts, and at the same time presses hard several times on the round bell on his desk. It is unnecessary. The secretary is already on the case. The outer office is now overrun with security. One guy with a rifle uses the butt to try and break down the door without success. Javed strikes Kanti Bhai's desk hard with his cane. It is more for effect than anything else. He has no intention of harming the man. Now, Kanti Bhai gets up from his desk and tries to head for the door. Javed blocks him. Tell your son to keep away from my niece, Javed says, still swinging his cane. Kanti Bhai's eyes are fixed not on the man, but on the cane. He is about to respond that the niece is a gold digger, but thinks the better of it. This is not a good time. Javed goes around the table and occupies the man's chair. He puts his legs on the desk. Keep away from the door, he says, and then looks around. Ah, you have a nice office. You like it? Kanti Bhai asks. He begins to like the man. A kindred spirit protecting his own. Javed sees framed portraits of 5 well-known public figures: Mahatma Gandhi, Vallabhbhai Patel, Morarji Desai, and the current Prime Minister Manmohan Singh on the walls. There is also a portrait of Muhammad Ali Jinnah. Pointing at the last one with his cane, he asks, "Why him?" It's a long story, Kanti Bhai says, now calm, realizing that the man will not harm him. He too was a Gujarati, like the other 4, Kanti Bhai tells him. But he did the country an enormous service by taking most of the Muslims out of here. For that he deserves to be recognized. Javed lets the remark go and without saying anything more, gets up, walks to the door of the cabin and opens it to leave. The security have brought an axe by now and are ready to tear the door down. Let him go, Kanti Bhai tells a small crowd assembled outside. Haram khor, he says softly. What? Javed asks. The word is haram khor, not haram zada, Kanti Bhai says. It brings a smile to Javed's face. Even he has to admit, this man is something. Everyone clears the way. Madhu has not got up from her desk this entire time, but she's aware of what has happened. She goes to the ladies' room and sobs. The three-wheeler has kept his word. Javed climbs in with some effort. Let's go. I am done here. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Sunil. Really was. That was brilliant, It's like even better than reading the book. Yeah, lovely. Yeah. So you should now, we need to do an audio book. Thanks. It just occurred to me that I didn't even, I said it was friends and wonderful authors. I don't think I gave their names. So I'm very sorry. So in conversation with Bhaichand will be Pawan Verma and Namita Goke, and the reason I hadn't named them is because they don't need introductions. As I said, I've worked with them a lot, and it's been a privilege. And Pawan we haven't yet published in Speaking Tiger, which we will do soon. But Namita's latest book, Life on Mars, it was wonderful. It was out earlier this year. So thank you, Pawan. Will you be moderating the discussion or who starts? Bhaichand? Yeah, okay. So if you'd speak and then after that, yeah.
First of all, thank you, Pawan and Namita, good friend, all of you. I'm not going to mention names, but I'm touched by the turnout. I have here a former Chief Justice of Supreme Court. I have former colleagues from the UN, including the head of the UN office here, diplomats I've known from Iceland for 40 years now, and friends. You know, you're my family. I don't live here. I came to Delhi in 1956. So I'm so glad you're all here. I'm not going to mention any name, but I'm delighted you're all here. Thank you.
Well, first of all, let me join my other panelists and all of you in congratulating Bhaichand for yet another scintillating. Bhaichand is a marathon runner. He had both his knees operated upon without informing a soul and came out dancing. And he continues to write, to read, to hold his wonderful parties with the same zeal and alacrity with which I knew he did about 40 years ago or 35 years ago, I can't remember, ever since I've known him, at least 40 years.
He was the UN Jury officer in the 80s.
Yes, I was posted in our mission to the United Nations in New York when I first met Bhai. Then, of course, fortunately, he moved to Delhi. Now, his latest book, to my mind, is a book set in contemporary India, but of great relevance, especially today, where there are religious divides largely created by vested interests, which have nevertheless permeated the psychology and the thinking and the attitudes and the approaches of people's mind. There is two lines in Hindustani which say, today, whether you are Hindu or Muslim, जाहिर नजर मुझे काफिर समझते हैं. जाहिर नजर means the narrow-minded clerics think I am a kafir. और परेशानी ये है कि काफिर मुझे मुसलमान समझते हैं. So somehow this dichotomy exists even within the landscape of cosmopolitan India. And there were times when these differences were far less. And I'm just giving a preamble to this book to facilitate the discussion because it's a fast-moving novel, you'll enjoy it. But there's a deeper message within it. There were only some time ago, when Ghalib died, people could not decide when they were burying him whether he is Shia or Sunni. And of course, much more famously, the same happened with Kabir when people could not decide or know whether he is Hindu or Muslim. But somehow these differences have become very entrenched now. And even though they are entrenched, there are bridges across them. And I think this is a book which, when titled Across the River, is talking about the fact of the Gulf and the possibility of building a bridge over it. And so we have a situation where, as Ravi mentioned, we have a lady who has a remarkably ambivalent name which could be Hindu or Muslim. Her name is Seema Chaudhary. Now she could be Hindu or Muslim, And of course, the person who falls in love with her is clearly a Hindu, because I don't think yet Muslims have called themselves Mohan. So here is an improbable situation, and yet there are ways found in it. So let me start off the discussion by asking Namita whether you see in Mohan, the protagonist who's a Gujarati businessman from a conservative Hindu background, for whom marrying outside one's immediate caste is anathema, but marrying someone outside your religious community, and especially a Muslim, is tantamount to signing a first-class ticket to hell. Now, here is his son Mohan. Do you find his role a little over-romanticized in today's times?
I don't think so, because I think Mohan, the character of Mohan, has been drawn with enough shades of his conflicts that he encounters in the course. He meets a girl, she's a lovely girl, and he likes her very much. But she withdraws a little, because she, more than him, I think, understands that the situation could be not so easy. And you, I think, are forgetting that this book was written, it is set sometime when the strange divides that have now infiltrated most societies in India. It was not like that. This was set, Bhaichand, when exactly is it set? I think it is set in Dr. Manmohan Singh's time.
What's the time period when it is set this way? I suppose
Towards the end of it.
Begins in the 40s and comes to the modern times, naturally.
Maybe.
It goes over a period. Let me explain. First of all, I really want to thank Ravi. I'm a good writer, but Ravi made me look very good. Ravi, thank you very much, man. And so, I'm in a difficult situation here. I'm not a national of this country. I have what they call OCI, Overseas Citizen of India. I have to be very careful. I want to write a political novel. I can't. Under the present situation, they can ask me to leave the country.
We are now diverting. But I asked you a question, and I'm asking you in that context, that he's saying, is Mohan credible?
Oh man, incredible.
Is he
she wants to divert me from what I really want to She's trying to protect me.
I'm not.
Yeah, protect me.
I just want to have some.
She's my dearest friend. And she gave me a slot in Jaipur last January. I was very grateful. And it
But
was
she still doesn't want you to die. What?
Yeah. I'm in a difficult situation. I can't talk politics. Even here.
So I feel from my listening that it is.
Yeah, I just said it, 2007, I think.
2007.
So in those days, it
those
was
scenes.
not such a big deal at all. It's in New Delhi, and with reasonably loving parents on both sides who overcame it. I did not find it unrealistic. I would find it unrealistic today, because whoever did it would face all kinds of potential trouble the way it is. But I've seen people negotiate that as well. As they say, the path of true love never did run smooth. So that's part of the story. But what I appreciated about the story is that just like Bhaichand has many strands in his own identity, whether it is Gujarati family from Fiji, Delhi, New York, Delhi, I think this book somewhere is a tender tribute to the Gujarati community, because both it looks at the flexibility and tolerance and pragmatism of a Gujarati family as they negotiate their way across Delhi. So I did not, to answer your question. find it unrealistic for the time frame within which it was.
Thank you, Namita. I wouldn't disagree with you, but Bhai just clarified that he has to be always politically correct. In order
Try so
to,
hard to be politically incorrect.
in order to retain his OCI. So Bhai, come to you. So, therefore, we probably deliberately decided to set it in 2007, because if we did it in today's time, it may have jeopardized your OCI card. However, of course, that's my job as a moderator. Sorry.
Yeah, you're right about that. But it's also a love story. My love for Delhi, really. I came here in 1956, all alone. On a plane from Fiji, got on a ship in Sydney, and arrived in Bombay on 7th of June 1956. And I've been here most of my life. I've been posted abroad. I've been with the UN. I'm blessed, so I traveled a lot. I was posted in New York, I was posted in Cairo, I was posted in Manila. But this is my home. I deliberately and consciously made India home because I love this place. I came here, it was very difficult in the beginning to adjust to certain things here, but I adjusted, and I'm very glad that I'm here. And so I wrote a story of my early period, what I remembered from my early days. When I arrived in Delhi in 1956, the Gujarati community, there was a small Gujarati community, not a large one, unlike today. They took me under their arms, they fed me, they took me home, it made me feel at home. And I was very grateful for that all these years. And some of them are still my friends, those who are still alive. And so I wanted to set a story in old Delhi. You see, I was not like this chap here in St. Stephen's or Hindu College. Those are great colleges. I was in a Bania College, Sri Ram College of Commerce. And people looked down on us. That's fine. And most of my friends were from old Delhi. Unlike Stevens, all these people from New Delhi, Lutyens Delhi and all that, we were all Bania. They used to come on bicycles and all that. And they made friends and I loved them. And so I remember those days. Actually, 1956, Sri Ram College, the hostel was built, and I was the first resident in the hostel behind Sri Ram College. And I have very fond memories. So I wrote a story about that. And then the tensions that have built up here, communal tensions, I thought I'd write about that. Because, most of us are liberal, but a lot of, in the old days, we did not badmouth Muslims in public. And that's when the Muslims badmouth Hindus in public. Now it's open. Nobody's ashamed of it anymore. And I think that's the big tragedy of this country. That, we are proud of our what called prejudices. Or not all of us, certainly this crowd won't be. But a large part of us, of the country, is now openly hostile to the other community. You can't eat beef, God say. Oh, fine, that's fine. I have no problem with that. I love beef, but never mind. We can't do this, you can't do that. So all kinds of restrictions on both communities, on the society itself. You can't say something. You're scared of. Now you're scared of saying things. This wasn't like that. When I came here, it was a great place. It's still a great place. I wouldn't want to go anywhere else. This is my home.
So, Bhaichand, I was trying to ask you one question, but it's actually in response to what you just said, become two questions. So I'll ask you one question. I appreciate your reply to my question.
Yeah.
So I would say that this book is a very tender tribute to the grit and resilience of the Gujarati community, across caste, across community, across religion. I want, this year in Jaipur you wanted to be part of the session on the Gujaratis, but you couldn't. But you said nobody knows more about the Gujarati community than I do. And I'm sure you're right in some ways, having observed them. Tell us about your understanding of the essential Gujarati traits. Its large and successful diaspora, their pragmatic entrepreneurial spirit, which you evoke with great skill. What is the Gujarati community, and with special reference to the Gujarati community in Delhi? How are they different, say, from the Banyas? Both are mercantile.
One myth about the Gujarati community is it's largely vegetarian. It's not. One majority of the people in Gujarat eat meat. And there are a large number of tribals and lower caste Hindus who eat meat. And a majority of Gujaratis are not. But the culture, the Gujarati culture, you go to Gujarat Bhavan or whatever, it's always vegetarian. And so that's a myth about Gujaratis. We're vegetarians. We're largely not. We are probably less non-veg than some of the people in the north. We're prejudiced also like everybody else. We're no less, no more than anybody else. Prejudiced. But a Gujarati, because he's an upper class Gujarati, because he's a vegetarian, he has no communication socially with the Muslims. I come from, my parents come from a village which is largely Muslim. The Hindus in those days were a minority, but they never entered each other's homes to eat. And that, I think, is a thing that divides Gujaratis, and I think many other communities, especially Gujaratis. A Gujarati will not, or an upper class Gujarati will not eat in a Muslim home. And he won't invite a Muslim because the Muslim can't reciprocate anyway. So that's one thing about the Gujarati, that's unique about Gujaratis. And Gujaratis love money. They'll find a way to go to the United States. They'll cross the border on ice from Canada or go through Mexico. They're business-minded people. But I'm a Patel. Our Patels are jats, really. We are village people. All the Patels you see anywhere, they're 2 or 3 generations ago, they're farmers. Cotton growers or whatever, fresh cash crops and all that. But the Patels actually are from north. About 1,000 years ago, they migrated from UP and Punjab and Haryana down to Gujarat to cultivate, which was the wilderness. They built Gujarat, and there we are. And actually, when you look at it, the Jats in the north are also vegetarians by and large, like us.
We've learned about the Gujarati community, but we're going to discuss the book now. So, with your kind permission, we'll return to the subject. The character of Seema Chaudhary, who could be Hindu or Muslim by name, and without going into the details of the story, but the need for her to get a job by hiding her Muslim identity in a Gujarati firm. Now these are educated women who come from a background where, if it's the time that you talk about, they don't need to necessarily go to the extent of deliberately, if I may say, hiding their religion. On the other hand, there is a need for her also to get a job. Now, since Sunit is not only here to do reading, are you a part of the discussion, right? As you should be. I had a book launch recently where the person who was supposed to release the book, Mr. Nitin Gadkari, was to go and sit in the audience. But he insisted on remaining on the stage, and then it became a much better discussion. So Sunit, thank you for being here. I will ask him this question, seek your response, and then we'll go back to Namita. Do you think that somewhere there was an unnecessary ethical deficit in the manner in which Seema deliberately chose to or agreed with her friend to hide her identity and put her headscarf away so that no one could identify her as being a Muslim. Do you think that for someone in Delhi, educated, well qualified and apparently good in her academic record, needed to do this, and by not doing so, was she being in some manner either less than courageous or frankly dishonest?
I should ask him. What he knows about it.
In his stand. Well, we just have to remember, I think, two things. One is that this is said quite some time, about 20 years ago almost. Number one. Number two, these are the two girls who are in their families, the first time graduates. They're the first girls who have gone beyond secondary or a school education in their families, if that. So they're the first graduates and they're the first ones stepping out of the house to get a job in the first place. So because of that weight of that responsibility, and she knows, this girl, Seema, that if she doesn't get a job, her only option is that Javed uncle, the one who was threatening the Gujarati in the passage which I read out, he is going to come, he's giving them 6 months, and he's going to come and fetch them and take them back to the village, and then they'll rot in the village and they'll marry her off to somebody who's from the village, and that's it. Azamgarh is the name of the place that she has to go back to. So I think that desperate desire to escape that life, together with the fact that her friend, her dearest friend, tells her that, look, this is a Gujarati, very conservative place that you're going to for the job interview, just take your hijab off. And she doesn't ever tell a lie. She says, I didn't answer any question I wasn't asked. So she's not even asked whether she is a Muslim or not. She's not asked her religion.
She doesn't contradict their assumptions.
She doesn't contradict their assumptions. She doesn't even go so far as to assume that they have assumptions for some time at least.
Otherwise she would have lost the job.
Yeah. I hope I've answered that satisfactorily, Bhaichand.
I think you did a wonderful job of it. It was not her idea. She was reluctant, she was desperate. The uncle, the mama would have taken her back to Azamgarh and married off somebody. Because the mother was a widow. The father had died. There's no income coming in. And they came from a reasonably well family in Azamgarh. And the uncle said, I give you 6 months, if you don't find a job, if you can't support yourself, you come to the village. And so she is desperate. And it was not her idea to not reveal her. It was her friend's idea. Her best friend, actually. The good thing about this story, I mean, if I may say so, is a love between two lovely women, a Muslim and a Hindu, without any caste prejudice, nothing. They were together in what is now Zakir Hussain College. In the old days. No, college.
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
It was,
At one time it was Delhi College. And it stayed in old Delhi. I remember when I was in Sri Ram College, there was a plot next to Sri Ram College which was allotted to Delhi College to move from old Delhi, from the red light area to down there. They refused, quite rightly. They wanted to serve the Muslim community, and Hindus also in the old Delhi, they stayed. And she went to a very modest college, and they were good friends, and I don't know, that's all I know, I keep diverting. By the way, apologies, you all came here to Shashi Tharoor, not me and but unfortunately the Prime Minister decided to speak at 6:30 this evening. So Shashi can't leave the Lok Sabha, and he may turn up later, but unlikely. But
Now you are doing quite well without him. As far as Delhi College being in the red light area, I think that's slightly inaccurate. Because the road actually is called colloquially known as GB Road, which stood for Bastion Road. And typically now it's been called Swami Shraddhananda. So it exists, but Delhi College is just outside it. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry to interrupt all the jolly laughter, but this really, when I read this book, it struck me because I had read your previous book, which is called Lovers, Mothers and Other Strangers. And I found this book so much more mellow and introspective, whereas your first book was quite sensational, full of flesh and blood and gore, and it was a very lurid kind of a book in its way, in a good way, I mean, but it won't make a difference. So, whereas The Heart and Core of Across the River is a love story. The first one was almost an anti-love story, but this book ends on a note of hope. And tell us about the distance between these two narratives, Lovers, Mothers and Other Strangers. I remember there were a lot of illegitimate children, there was hurt, there was abandoned women, there was a murder also.
That was set in
The two
Bombay.
books are so different. So tell us about how have you mellowed or you just...
I'm very proud of this book. The other one I wrote, may I digress again? Why do I write? Now you ask me, why do I write? I write to keep my dementia away from me. It's an exercise for me. I have to write. If I stop writing, I will finish. It keeps my mind alert. I Ravi Patient Peanuts, the publisher. But I write about 200, 300 words a day. And at the end of 6 months, you get a first draft and then you move and all that. And then the editor improves it. But that's the reason I write. And I've been writing only after I retired from the UN in 1996, 97, and made Delhi my home. And I first, Penguin asked me to write a non-fiction book, and then I wrote this wonderful book on Bollywood, basically, Mothers, Lovers and Other Strangers, set in Bombay. That also is a lovely book, but I'm particularly proud of this because I have something to say here.
Thank you, Mike. This is indeed a lovely book. Often and publicly express sentiments about women and your fondness for them. Somehow, in the relationship of Seema and Mohan as portrayed in this book, you seem to have taken an almost sanitized decision to keep out all sex and sensuality. Is that in keeping with your personality and inclination?
You guys who live in Lutyens Valley, in Vasant Vihar, you have casual sex. People in Old Delhi don't do that, you know. not during my time, I think. Hey, I'm not even going to tell you when I first kissed a woman. Late in life, but never mind. It was a pretty messy kiss. I still remember. These are conservative people, you know. We still find these kind of people, less now, but at one time, you know, the men are as much virgin as the women were, you know. It's a new trend that of sex before marriage. It was there, I'm sure, but not as much as it is today.
Namita is saying that we should open the floor for questions, but I think that there's a little more to discuss, another 10 minutes. Perhaps because you never know what Bhai will say next. And that always makes the conversation interesting. So, apart from any further confessions, there is in this story a subtext which is important. And I'm glad that Bhai said that he wanted to write this book because he wanted to write it to convey a message. And that message is that in spite of modernity, in spite of that much maligned word secularism, in spite of the broader outlook which you often see in bigger cities, there is, and I'm moving away from the artifice of the timeline you've chosen for your book to keep your OCI. I'm saying in today's time, it is a malaise. It is a malaise that we have to confront, and we have to be able to reason with resolve our way out of, because we cannot allow for a nation whose calling card is a composite culture, multi-religious, multicultural, to become a hateful homogeneity. And it's not desirable, it's not feasible, it's not sustainable. And I think therefore this book, although you have written it as a story, as a love story, and it surprises me about your knowledge about Old Delhi, because I've done a book on the Havelis of Delhi, Old Delhi, and a biography of Mirza Ghalib. The book reveals a great deal of knowledge of Old Delhi as well. So when you were writing it, you were very clear that you wanted to show that, I'm summing it up for you, and I want you to say no, either you're right or wrong, and either way explain yourself. Did you want to convey that these divides exist, that they have existed for some time, which can be called coexistence, if not absolute cordiality cutting across all social barriers?
Yeah.
Where you would be friends with, for instance, in Old Delhi with a Muslim family or a Hindu family, but there would be boundaries set which people did not cross in terms of the expression of that friendship. On the other hand, in Old Delhi itself, I can tell you that there was a great deal of camaraderie between Hindus and Muslims, especially on festivals. Bahadur Shah Zafar used to celebrate Holi. We used to call it Eid-e-Gulal. And we had many forms of syncretism that exist. So when you wrote this book, you had a message to convey that these divides exist but can be actually crossed over. Was that your message or was it not?
My message is basically that we are all really decent people, basically, and we need leaders to guide us towards a certain direction. Nehru did that, others did that, and now we have got leaders who are bent on dividing the country for their own political gains. I read the other day, whether it's true or not, I think it is sometimes, that there's an attempt to remove the word secular and socially from the Constitution. I think that is frightening, to change the Constitution. I don't think it will happen. But this is a great country, really, there's no question about it. I won't want to live anywhere else. But we need to get back on track. I think we can do that. We can do that. Education is a good idea, I think, but various ways. Yeah, that's my message. Yeah. It's a political book without politics, political people involved with it. It's basically a very political book, I should say.
Thank you, Bhai. I think we'll now open the floor to the question, but I don't know if how many people have read the book, but on the generic subject itself, is hurdles within society, and there is a divide which is very palpable, and how they negotiate that, essentially. And that is a problem that has become far more endemic today, more simulated than actual, but nevertheless with very deleterious consequences. So if you have questions on the book, on any character, on the general theme of it, and on Bhai's sense of address about Delhi College, you can ask me.
I have a I don't know how to put this.
Does anyone have a mic to pass around? Ravi? Yeah, it's coming to you.
Absolutely delightful, this interaction. Time has flown, and I didn't realize that it's really addressing a very large topic actually. But what I wanted to ask was this wonderful thing he just said, that essentially we are really decent people, and we are first of all, I think we are very entrenched Indians, all of us, and that's what I think most of us would like to remain. But what I want to understand is how tragic is it that technology is amplifying the wrong messaging. So even when human beings want to reflect or introspect, there's so much of intrusion and noise and technology and images and all that, which are polluting the mind and the atmosphere in a way which, do you think we're out of control? What do we do now?
You answer that. No, really, I don't know. It's very depressing. What you said really depresses me a lot. But I think this is a very resilient country. It's been around for thousands of years. And, we're going through a bad phase. And I think eventually we'll get out of it. And with a little bit of luck, with less manipulation of the election process, we might succeed.
You can hardly be more political than this, Bhai. We have elections in Bihar where we are questioning this precisely. But nevertheless, your question, yes, the ambient noise is part of an orchestrated social media campaign, largely. And it influences those minds which are possibly already persuaded to be so convinced. But increasingly the saturation of it or the excess of it or the blatancy of it, it's creating its own anti-reaction. People dismiss it out of hand. People see it for what it is and refuse to be incited. Also, you must understand that in the warp and woof of the Indian national fabric, irrespective of what happens necessarily on social media, people of all communities live cheek by jowl in very close proximity and are part of the exchange and interchange of everyday life. So, therefore, I think that the problem exists, but at the same time, it's not insurmountable.
It's not apocalyptic, I think.
No, it's not. It's not. Yes.
As a savvy Gujarati, do you see this as a preface to a film script?
Or do you see this as a preface?
Of course I do. Actually, it started as a film script, and then nobody was interested in it. And so I thought I'll turn it into a book. And really, I'm a film person. I love movies, and I love Indian movies especially. No, it can be turned into, but I doubt now. In the present atmosphere, nobody would want to touch a book about a story about a Muslim and a Hindu love story. I don't think it's possible at this stage. Maybe on television.
OTT platform.
OTT. Maybe Netflix can do it or something. But as a movie, I think there's no possibility.
So Mike say I can say it with credibility that like if I date a certain woman the fourth or the fifth time, sometimes I'm still doubtful that I'm dating a Hindu or a Muslim. Believe me, that's the truth of it. Would you call it heterogeneity, homogeneity? What would you call it? You are OCI, PIO, something like that. And you want to stay in this country, but you still have doubts. So what would you call that? Your book clearly delves around this. So what would you call that? And I'm being credible here. I'm being absolutely credible here.
He says he's in doubt. Even a girl he is dating is a Hindu or a Muslim.
Yeah. That's your problem, yeah.
I have heard about all of us very decent people, coexistence, but I think in the current scenario, to stay politically correct is the most important, and that's what matters.
Doesn't matter. Any other questions?
And I congratulate you. I just wanted to, I don't have a question, but I wanted to amplify what sentiments he is expressing about Old Delhi and the relationship between Muslims and Hindus. I did field work during the emergency, and I lived for 2 years in a Muslim family. It was a Hakim family living in Ballimara, a very important family of Ajmal Khan's descendants. Hakim Ajmal Khan's descendant, who was also a politician, president of Congress Party, etc. etc. What I wanted to say is that as a Hindu, I was aware that I'm a single girl. I was made aware by my professor. I was not a Muslim, and I was a woman. So all these three disadvantages, and being in a Muslim family and studying rituals of Muslims. Muslims are technically not supposed to have rituals, right? I was treated with so much respect and affection. And I lived there for 2 years as a member of the family. No decision of the family was taken without consulting me. And this is despite the fact that from 1947 onwards, when Hindus and Muslims not only lived cheek by jowl, but they were like brothers and sisters and friends and lovers and all of that. There was a kind of a palpable, जैसे दो भाई रूठ जाते हैं. Because politically they were treated as second-class citizens, they couldn't get admission in colleges, and so they had to go to Muslim schools, Muslim colleges, etc., etc. However, the openness in both Hindu and Muslim families to feel that bond that was kind of suppressed at the level of, what should I say, political inclusion in terms of progress and so on and so forth. Emotionally, that bond remained. Otherwise, I would not have felt what I felt, and I was like meeting all the families of Delhi, all the Muslim families of Delhi who had been there from the time that Shahjahan built it. And they had, of course, contacts in UP and Punjab and other places. I'll leave it at that here.
No, Didi, but you are Christ, they served the Muslim emperors in the past and all that. They come from a very enlightened background. And that old Delhi on the civil lines was very, very friendly to everybody, and I appreciate what you're saying. And yeah, it was like that, but it's changing. And your husband was part of the Prime Minister's museum, but he's so liberal, he was got kicked out.
Well, there's a lot of political incorrectness going on here. So, I wish you well, Bhai. I want to congratulate you once again on your book. And I want to say hatred and bigotry is not the monopoly of any one religion. You have Khat panchayats and there are honor killings within Hindus. and you have similar kind of things within the Muslim community itself. But since you are fond of films, and hopefully this will be made into a film, I'll end by what Sahib Udyanvi, echoing the theme of your book, wrote in 1959 in a film called Dhul Ka Phool. तो हिंदू बनेगा न मुसलमान बनेगा, इंसान की औलाद है इंसान बनेगा. Thank you so much.
You got the message, everybody. So, no, but really, this was such a wonderful conversation. It's been such a very, very long time since we were part of a book launch that was so entertaining. Really. And I was thinking which one of them to ask that you should write a comic novel. A comic novel. So, okay, please join us. Thanks very much.